Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Go Talk Show with Tracy Renaé and all of our beautiful panelists. We got Katie and Larry and Becky and Kathy. Kathy, I always want to say Catherine and Jennifer. Everybody's popping in, and maybe we get some new ones. If you know somebody that could benefit from these, please like, share, do all the fun things that we do with YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify and you want to see all of us lovely people, hop over to the YouTube channel of Let's Go Talk Show. Okay, we're going to start off with a very interesting concept that the healers brought in last week, which I blew my mind, and I'm doing it, and it's just so crazy cool. I was talking, I don't know, about something, sickness, anger, all the stuff that the world's going through. And they said, imagine a world without blank. So imagine a world without anger. And I was like, okay, yeah, that would be really cool. And they said, no, no. If you think that, if something's going on in your life and you think, or you say, well, imagine a world without that. Imagine a world without anger. Immediately what happens is, like, I saw this like stuff change, like everything was like transforming into for the consciousness. So the more that we're saying or thinking, imagine a world without whatever it is, pick whatever. Imagine, Tracy, you had a really great one. What was yours?
Well, I was because I actually have been I think we pre-talk about things before we really get it, but I was saying imagine a world without if the body was completely whole and healthy all the time and how in depth that really goes. Because what I kept being shown is it's not just all the doctors and the medicines and the rehabs and but no one needs glasses, no one needs braces, but also like the gyms, like people that go to the gym, not because they want to, because they've been told by their doctor, they're trying to stay healthy. And I was really shown how deeply layered it gets. And if it's kind of fun and interesting to think of all the things or food. My other one was food. What if we didn't have to eat to survive, that we just did it because we wanted to? And the analogy I got was, like people swim for joy. What if that was the same thing for eating? You can do it. It's available and possible, but it's by choice because it brings you joy. That's another huge one. I mean, think those two things would change our world. Like you can't even really imagine it to the depth that it would change the world. In a good way, I would argue, attest.
Absolutely. Well, so I'm going to hold this up because I wrote it down because they said write it down and show it. So if everybody needs a visual, imagine the world without blank. Like, I want this in your brains, because if we really start to do that, how amazing the world will shift. And they're saying because we're now shifting for the overall consciousness, which brings us into a point of, if you're feeling something that, or the mind is going crazy on, oh, I wasn't feeling good today, oh, what if I had this, and we go into a sickness or whatever it is. If you're immediately going into, oh, imagine a world without sickness, imagine a world without that. But what's happening is, when your mind is going into that fearful thought or whatever it is, what if it's this, what if it's that, it's not yours. A lot of times they're saying right now we are clearing through the overall consciousness. And there's many people that aren't doing things for the consciousness, that aren't aware. Because we're all aware, we are clearing for the consciousness. So be very aware of when you are going into a fearful thought, even if it's something that you had dealt with years ago. You're like, oh, I used to have this years ago, I thought I cleared it. No doubt you did. What's now happening is we are all clearing for the consciousness. And what if you just said, oh, okay, oh my God, yes, I have this. Oh, I must be clearing it for the consciousness. All right, good. We're imagining a world without this. Or even just, okay, we're clearing this for the consciousness. We're a part of the consciousness. So of course it would clear for you without having to go into the fear, because what they said is, when you do that and you're thinking, okay, oh, I'm clearing this for the consciousness. This is great. What's happening is you're no longer feeding your mind the power that it thought it had to then help the mind tries to overpower the body. So when you are going into, oh my God, what if I have whatever, I don't know, like my son is always telling me, like, oh my God, how come you can't remember his childhood friend's first name? Like, Why would I? I don't see the kid. He's not around now. He's like, oh, what's happening? Are you getting dementia? Like, what the heck? And I'm like, no. But maybe I would go into it like, oh my God, what if I have dementia? Oh my God, I couldn't remember this. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. Or I can't remember that. Oh my God, what do I have dementia? Because he said it, right? So instead of going into that, it would be like, oh, I'm clearing this for the overall consciousness. How wonderful. I totally bypassed the mind on that. Went right into the body, right into the heart, they're saying. And the heart then started to, they're showing it like going up into the base of the skull. I don't really get the whole physical form. So when they're saying this, I'm hoping it makes sense. Show it going to the base of the skull, and I can see all these things like rewiring and it going up into the mind. And then it just all sort of like the electrical currents are moving all over, and the mind is firing up at different levels. So they're saying we don't even recognize and realize what is happening, but they're saying what's at that particular point is we are letting go of the mind's control and the limitation and the fear that it is programmed for. Does that make sense?
You know what? Can I say something
Yeah,
quick, Renaé?
absolutely.
I often hear people say that we should say these affirmations, right? Something to tell yourself that your thoughts aren't real, but this affirmation will change your body from within, whatever. Using that backwards way of doing it, a world without, that doesn't feel false to me. It
Yeah,
feels like that. Why did it take that long for that without word to come out?
right.
I am so thankful I came today just for that.
Mm-hmm.
That feels real to me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Because the world, we're changing so much. Think about it. Think about when all of us started all this, right, years ago. Think about how much process and how hard it was to do things. And think of it today, how easy. Things are just getting easier and easier and easier because our awareness is there. So, they're bowing to all of us and saying, thank you all for bringing such an awareness to the world and to the consciousness. Because every time we're doing something, we are making that shift, not only for ourselves, but for everybody else. And we're the ones that are bringing forth the ability to now have a new way. Anybody else have anything else to say about that? Or anything that we've talked about?
Yeah, I would just like you to talk a little bit about, let me see, where we are heading as far as our brain and our body or heart or whatever. Like, what is the best thing for us to do on a regular basis?
They're saying it's so simple and so easy. And Tracy, they're saying, I hope they're right. They're saying you're getting something on that and you've had something on that. So take that. Go ahead, you take that one.
Okay, so I have been, and again, these are just words that I'm using to kind of try and explain. It's this concept of rewriting the past. When we reclaim a new reality, it's almost as if your past gets rewritten. And I'll give you an example of how it came to me. My daughter doesn't have Snapchat anymore. Apparently, they said you can only save this much. So this whole couple of days I was with her, we were going through all her Snapchat memories. Um, and a lot of them I kept going, God, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. And she's like, Mom, are you blocking it out? And I'm like, no, two things are happening. If it's not worth being saved in your memory, it's okay to let it go. Why are we holding on stuff that did not bring us joy, that was not or was not relevant to who we are, who we're becoming? And I'm like, that is so fascinating, where you could go to, why am I not remembering this stuff? It was like, why would I remember it? Right? Because it was just an experience in the moment. There was no real compelling reason to retain it. But furthermore, this whole rewriting, and Renaé, I've talked about this, that we will at some point live in a world where someone says, cancer, what is that? What does that mean? We have absolutely no, we can't even dig in our memory to even have a conceptual of what that might mean. It's if someone was talking to you in a foreign language. So if you really think that through in your brain, all of these things that we've experienced at some point in time, could it be possible that not only will you not remember them, you have no context to what that energy frequency consciousness even held. I mean, that's a boom. But then I get an example real time of watching, Snapchat memories of my daughter from like 5 years ago. And I'm like, God, I'm like, you went through an eyeliner phase? I don't recall that. So it's cool how it's happening because it's a lot to the brain. And I don't think it's the brain. I think it's our operating system that's beyond the human body that we don't go to a lot to see how it all is really working. That is what is shifting into something new beyond what our brain can really conceptually grasp into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's really cool is they're saying it's so simple and so easy. Because we're going into that point, exactly what you said, Tracy. And I think I'm just sort of rewording it from what they're saying is going into us recognizing and being our power from a very simple, easy way. All the old foundations are gone. We no longer have foundation, they're saying, and it's been gone for a little bit. So they're saying, so we're no longer digging into it. There's no longer root systems. So we don't have a foundation. So we can't go back into, they're saying you could recreate, but you can't go back into the past, which is, I think, again, exactly what you're saying, Tracy. So therefore, you're not really remembering it. It's not coming forward. The mind is sort of scrambling at this point to find a relevant something. And that's, they're saying, so people, you're going to be experiencing, if you're not already, you're going to be experiencing lightheaded, a little dizziness, a little like, oh my God, what's happening to me? Your whole body's going to feel off. Because we're going into a whole different field, a whole different existence. Where we're going is to recognizing our power, our body being this beautiful temple of light. This temple of light cannot have sickness, cannot have fear, cannot have worry, cannot have concern. The more you're thinking, imagine a world without fear, imagine a world without overweight, imagine a world without whatever, all these different things. We're saying it's such a simple thing. And the consciousness has gone into this of simplicity, the simplicity of let us now create what we want. Don't look at where are we going or what are we going to be, because it's up to you. They're saying you're going to return to the light that you truthfully are. And all of the stuff that we're used to in the outskirts are going to be gone because we can create and be exactly what we want. If you're thinking, hey, you know what, I would like to try I'd like to try this coffee that somebody else is talking about. I don't remember ever having that before, even though you did. They said, and then all of a sudden there it is in front of you. And, you're drinking like, okay, if it's good or bad, you're choosing that. You will have that because you will create something that you want. So of course it's going to be fabulous because they're saying the truth of the matter is, and this is a big concept, food and sleep are part of the human limitation field. It is not who and what we truthfully are. They're saying, now you can choose to be there because if you want to live in that dimension, that field, go ahead. But what you will start to recognize, and they're saying some people are already recognizing this, as you're moving through life, as you're going through, you might recognize and say, wow, this feels so different. Like I've just walked out of this, whatever. I walked out of my home. Now I've walked through this, feels so different. Same because what's now happening is these dimensional portals have opened all around the world, but they're not the old way or the old way we've learned about portals. It's now this concept of I've walked out of my house into a whole nother field, a whole nother portal. And they're saying, again, these are just human words, which they're saying are so limited. And we're going to get into the whole wording thing in a minute too, but they're saying you're moving into a different dimension, a different field, because that has opened up. And in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to start to recognize other beings within our human field who are here to help us. So the more we're going into the feeling, the more we're going into the mind or letting go of the mind and feeling from the body perspective. When you see these other beings, it is going to be very obvious, oh, they're here to help us. It's not going to be a fearful thing because they're saying they're already walking this earth just disguised as a human anyway. So you're used to feeling some of their energies. And this might sound really out there and crazy, but they're saying the next 2 to 3 years, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. 2 to 3 years, like, oh my God, these goats by so fast. And what's interesting to me is, Tracy, you and I talked about this before. It was 4 to 5 years a couple of weeks ago when Tracy and I talked about it. And now the fact that they're saying 2 to 3 years, I'm like, what the heck happened? They're like the overall consciousness has shifted. More people are awake and they're aware and they're paying attention and they're saying, this is the world I want to be in. So again, that imagine a world without whatever, utilizing those words or whatever comes to you for that, you are really shifting and changing the world. So this could be such a better place. But, they're sort of focusing, back to Larry, and they're saying, you are going back to who and what you truthfully are, your light, as we all are. And they are so appreciative that we all do this work. And, that we're here for all of this, because they're saying they're not moving forward because it's like no man left behind. They're not moving forward into an even higher field of existence. And those are my words, because I can't even just explain what they're having me feel or show. So they can't move without us shifting and going along with them. So that's why they're all here, and there are more will be coming to help us, because we need to move forward. We need to get out of the fear and all the stuff. And they're saying that's why everything in the world is so contrasting right now. It has to implode so that we create. And that's why we're now building a new energetic field. They're not even saying foundation, because they said the foundations are done. It's all old energy. They say, even if you go back to all the stuff that you learned, even, 6 to 8 months ago, to say, feel it. It doesn't even feel right anymore, because it's such an old way of doing things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I was thinking the whole time too, because I'll tell you something that's been going on with me was I started getting on my face and my head, let me see, what would you call it? Like a rash. And so I'm thinking, what is that from? It was getting pretty pronounced and stuff. And so I get the pendulum out. All right, let me figure this out. And I says, is it something I'm eating? And they said, no. And then I thought, what the heck? Because I thought it had to be something I ate. And then I said, I asked, okay, am I stressed out? And I got yes. And so all these, I was working on it for weeks. I'm thinking, what is this? And as soon as I got that, then I felt it. Oh my God, I'm up in my head. And so I've been doing things to get out of my head and get into my heart, basically. And so I think I think they're related, what's going on there, but yeah.
Yeah, and they're saying doing things to get into your heart. They're saying recognize some of that is the mind telling you and showing you how to get there. And they're saying just have your thought be, I'm going into the heart. The minute you say that or think that, you're there. You're in that space. We are so used to thinking it's a process. I can't just say or think something that can happen. That's impossible. Well, no. It's possible. That's what's happening. That's the field. That's the energy we're in. So they're saying, just I'm choosing to live in the heart. Imagine a world without us being in our head. Imagine a world where the mind isn't controlling. I'm always living. Imagine a world that I'm always living in the heart. Right? Start, to say those things. They're saying it's just so easy, but that's not what we've been programmed. It's not what their parents were. That's just not the way the world was. But that is the way the world is now. And that's where we're going more into that. Which is, to me, just like, my God, so crazy. And I'll tell you, I've been using that. Like, it is wild to me, the way things and people change around in just having that thought. Like somebody comes in with aggravation or whatever. And I'm just looking at them like, now I'm just thinking, imagine a world without all this anger. I could be saying, imagine a world without this person, but that's like, imagine a world without all this anger, without all this venom coming at me. Like, how wonderful would that be? And it's just so crazy. It's almost like my ears shut out. Like I can't hear. It's almost like this shield goes up. And I'm no longer feeling it. It's just, you're just in this place of neutrality of like, oh, like how interesting this is. And it's almost comical.
Well, I'm totally grateful for this because I'm the caretaker for my 89-year-old mother who is on her own path, and it's hard. And so this is going to be so much easier. I can just say that as she's going off on her things. Yeah. And it'll bring me back to center.
Yes.
And I think she's getting better and realizes what she's saying, but it takes something calm to get her to come out of it. And this is going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I can't
It's
wait to try it,
wonderful.
Becky. It's amazing.
Oh.
Like, it's gonna be like life changing. It's just crazy cool to me. And the more we're doing that, imagine what we're moving into for the world, for not only for us, for everybody else, because they too are benefiting from that. Right?
Exactly. All the people that we're around, every doctor's office visit, all of that, it's just going to radiate out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy cool. Yep. Thank
Right.
you.
I'm with you. Tracy, what'd you have?
I was going to say it's very interesting if you start to entertain the, wouldn't it be great in a world that, or what do we say? Oh, I need the note again, Renee. Imagine a world without. I love your W's too. Imagine a world without. I, of course, have been having conversations. I'll spark the craziest conversations ever and say stuff like that. Imagine a world that we didn't need to have surgeries. And it's interesting to me how people will argue against why that would be a great possibility. And then I'm like, wow, it's fascinated that why would you not think that that's a great thing? Like you prefer a world that we have sickness and it's fascinating because they will argue for it. And then I usually say, that's cool. I go, I choose a different reality. We all get to choose our own realities. Like, isn't that great? But I really find it so fascinating how dug in people get about or business stuff. Well, that's just how it works. Yeah, but what if it didn't work that way? What if we didn't have to jump through all those hoops? Like Renee knows, I hope no one's in the insurance world, is the biggest scam out there. And I would say, wow, wouldn't that be so cool if insurance didn't exist? We didn't have to pay all this money for health and car and we have businesses and it's woo through the roof the liability insurance we pay nowadays. And by the way, they pay out nothing in our world. But no, we have to have insurance because and it took me a while to turn the frustration, the anger into, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And then I flipped it to, well, that's just not the reality I choose to live in. But I totally honor the fact if you want to live in that reality. But now what's getting a little even more interesting is, oh my goodness, if stuff is not, and it's my life, so I get to talk about it, in the businesses, the stuff that I'm like, that's not in alignment with the new energies. Where insurance policies cancel us or triple us, then cancel us, and it's like, well, we can't get insurance because no one's offering it. So now what? It's these, which could be really frustrating, challenging examples, and they are to my husband. And to me, I'm going, oh, isn't that fascinating? Totally saw that coming. Well, what are we going to do now? So it can get a little chunky, clunky, but if you keep it in the isn't that fascinating and to watch and it's usually your family members or if you own a business, those are the ones, if you helped me with this, Renee, I stand in this absolute certainty of a pure energy and a certain way of, well, I'm not in alignment. That's not my reality anymore. This contrast of energies and frequencies, they can't exist in the same bandwidth. So the lower ones, they get all volatile and it's all the little micro explosions in your life. And Larry, even the skin stuff, I say that with my body. If you're not of the purest integrity within this structure, it's time to come out now. And nothing like, not in a drastic way. Let's have it be with the most grace and ease. Come on, come out. You can have your little expression. I'll honor that because I've had a bunch of skin stuff too. And thank God I have Renee every Monday that's like, Tracy, no, can you just let the toxins out? Can you let it express?
Let the body express what needs to express.
Yeah. So it's so cool and fascinating if you can stay in that heart space, because even me too, I can be like, oh my gosh, this, same all the things. And we have to have insurance. What if someone slips and falls? They're going to take everything we own. well, no. Can we, let's reframe that.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Okay.
Anybody, anything on all that?
Yeah, I would like to say one thing about what Tracy said about insurance that hit me right when she said, the prices keep going up and then we get canceled. Or, maybe that could happen. But the point that came to me was, oh my gosh, if they're canceling their customers, they're canceling themselves.
Yep. Exactly. And they don't even realize it.
and I'm going to say this story
Kind
not
of
out
funny.
of fear. Uh-oh. Sorry.
Out of fear? Uh-oh.
My screen went away for a minute. I'm like, really? Really? Um, that, oh shoot, I just lost what I was going to say.
It'll come back. Jennifer, unmute and ask you whatever you were going to say.
Well, that was amazing. I love that story, Tracy, about the insurance, because I'm having that issue right now with doctors. And now I know that I don't want to go the tradition route for an illness I have, but I feel like I have to at least go see these traditional doctors so that I can say that I listen to them, so that I can, and this is also for my family, so I can tell my family, no, I listen to them. I've seen both sides. I'm going my path, but I can't get an appointment with any of them. Now, all of a sudden, all the traditional doctors are like, oh no, we're booked for 2 months. I'm like, okay, great. Because that means I get to do my own treatment the way I want to do it for 2 months. And then when I get to talk to you, I'll say, see, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going. But I think it's
An
right.
example.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because I do still have that part of me that's going, wait, I'm not important enough that they can't see me for 2 months. Clearly they don't. But at the same time, I'm like, but you don't want that anyhow, Jen. Like why? but I'm still in my head going, no, but that's the way I'm supposed to do it. And I'm, feeling like dissed because, well, they don't want to see me, but it's like, no, but you don't want them to see you. So that's why it's happening.
Yeah.
So,
And your body's saying, look, we're not going to do that. Like, give us a chance. Give us a chance. So it's really like, whatever you want to say, the universe, whatever, giving you that, okay, here you go. Here's your chance. And then when you go, like, sometimes that's the thing, like when you go into the doctors, because there are certainly people out there that need to do certain things. Now, you know what your body wants, and when you're done with those 2 months or whatever, and you'll have the validation from the doctors of, oh yeah, this is getting better, or whatever it is. But it's the point, some people still need to go through the traditional route of, well, I need X, Y, and Z to get my mind, not that they're recognizing what it is, but to get my mind into the point of like, oh yes, we can listen to the body and we can heal, and do that whole point. Because I know a lot of people lately have had like cancer and different things. And there was a study that a particular bees, the bee venom was, did you say, okay, yeah. So the bee venom, like, like made the cells healthy again, whatever. So it was very interesting. And some people that did that, it really worked for them. And then there were a couple of people that reached out and they said, oh yeah, I went to the doctors and it was getting better, but they still want to do surgery. And they said, this is the route I'm going to go. And okay, that's you following your whatever, because then the mind can wrap itself around it, and it gives, but what the healers are saying is it then gives the human body, the human field, okay, this isn't on me. I don't have the power to do this. Now, that's a very interesting thing if you think about it. Why don't we have the power? But if they need to do that to then clear their system of whatever they need to clear to say, okay, now I can come in from a healthy point. Now I can bring my power up. I didn't have the power to, how the healers are now saying it is, they were saying, well, I didn't create this. I didn't have the power to create this. Well, we created everything in our life. So now it's, why wouldn't you have the power to now flip it and transform it into a healthy whole body? And to you, Jennifer, they're looking at you and they're saying, on the whole point of, stop allowing the mind to control and say, well, I'm not worthy. They said, of course you're worthy. You're worthy. So look in the mirror in your eyes and say, we are worthy and we are whole and healthy. In a very strong thing, because they're saying the fact that your mind was telling you, oh, wait a minute, I'm not worthy enough to have this appointment, is the mind trying to say we're not worthy of healing. So they're saying you've got to get that healthy. And another thing they're saying is, and this is to everybody, they're saying if you can get yourself into safety, if you're always saying we, now when they're saying we, that means all parts of you. Okay, so if you start off with I and it switches to we, that's okay. They're saying we are safe. Go to bed thinking that, wake up thinking that. Anytime you can think about we are safe, because they're saying a safe, if you're in a safe field, if you know you're safe, there's absolutely nothing that could possibly touch you in the human field that would not be of pure safety and joy. When you think about that, like, that's crazy. Which now I'm realizing, like a couple of weeks ago, I went to bed. As I was going to bed, I was just like, "Oh, we're safe, we're safe, we're safe." I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" I'm like, okay, I just go along with it. Like, all right, we're good. But it's just very interesting, especially this whole sickness. And they're saying the words are going to just, what they're saying is disintegrate. The words are going to disintegrate. So when you're thinking we're safe, all of a sudden you'll start to have that feeling. You'll go into the feeling of safety, because words do not mean anything, but they're saying it's such a limitation. It's such a fear-based place. We're saying if you really look at all the words in the human field, there's always the connecting factors of fear. I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, I will, all these things. They're saying there's so much there. And they're sort of pointing to Katie. So Katie, unmute yourself. And what they're saying is Katie had a great story before we came on to record of these things that have nothing to do with the words, and I want everybody to feel this. Katie, can you tell your story about your cards?
Yes, we were just talking. I watched last week's broadcast about words and that anyway, what I shared was that when I got some cards, I saw these cards, they had beautiful pictures on them, and I thought, oh, these would be great cards. I like to pull a card here and there in the mornings or whatever. And when I received the cards, they have no words. They're only pictures. And my first reaction was, well, wow, that's disappointing because I want messages. And the little book says, we sent these without words because we want you to engage and have your own message. And now they're my favorite cards. I love them, because you get a picture, you do them like any cards, you shuffle them or however you choose to do it. And you get a picture and then you see what that picture is supposed to be for you. And they're amazing. And sometimes I'll do one a day. Sometimes I'll pick one every day and line them up, and just remind myself as I look at the flow of them, what I am telling myself or being guided to understand. So that was my cards.
I love that, because again, you're going beyond the words and
Right.
just the feeling of them and the energy that is enfolded and how it will meet you exactly where you are.
Right.
And Tracy, you are awesome at that whole not using the words. So if you could use you could tell us your story as well of, look, I'm not using them.
Well, I think as you further go along this understanding and expansion of how, everything is changing, and that I find that increasingly, if I was trying to use words, it was a swing and a miss. Like they were not being interpreted, they weren't being heard. So you get to a point that the words are no longer effective, because I think, Catherine, we were saying how, everyone's interpretation is different. But to start using telepathy more of, just start speaking in the nonverbal and holding a more of an energetic stance, a frequency band of what I am creating, attracting, do all the words. But it starts to get really, really interesting and fascinating. And again, you can almost see people reacting to you and you haven't said anything. And that's what gets really fascinating. And the reaction is almost stronger. And then you're like, wow, ooh, message received. So it starts getting really interesting. And one of my new favorite things now, I think everyone knows I have a lot of businesses, and there's a lot of things that are really going wonky in all the businesses. So there's a lot of frustrations, things are breaking, all the things. And a lot of it I have kind of seen and been speaking about, knowing all these things were going to be coming down the pipeline. So now when people call me, obviously I'm like on the phone or in front of them and I listen and I'm, responding with my energies. And then normally I'll just go, no comment. And oh my gosh, does it zing them? Because I've already commented. I've already had the response or my to this whatever it was so many times with words of no consequence. Like, okay, this is the 12th time we've had this conversation, right? So it starts to become really fascinating how that's the one that worked. That's the conversation that had the connection, the one that I didn't use any words. And okay. So that's kind of my either the no comment or the silence, or Renee knows this, my neighbor Marianne, we walk the beach all the time and she listens to my zany every day. She keeps showing up. It amazes me. And she just got me a shirt that said, fun fact, I don't care. And you could take that as a negative, like I don't care, but it's more of a joking, gentle, all the drama, all the spin, all the story. As I say to Renee, I'm so bored and exhausted with all that. Like I don't care. And not in a bad way, because I do care and I care greatly. But that drama, I don't have the bandwidth. I choose not engaging. So it really, and trust me, there's days of frustration and challenge, but it's so awesome when you can get to the point. And Becky, my mother-in-law is Alzheimer, dementia, and her insecurities are raging at us. Like we take her out, and it took me a while to get to the point of, wow, isn't this fascinating? Listen, she's literally projecting vile at us, and it has nothing like I'll make some very off-cuff conversation. We were at our restaurant, and we're like, "This is just craziness around here," and she's like, "Are you calling me crazy?" And we're like, no one's even looking at you. Like, what are you talking about? But so it helps in so many scenarios to take that emotional charge out and return to, wow, isn't this fascinating?
I found that kind of on accident when I'm driving my mom. She gets off on tangent. She's rewriting history, the stories she tells her, not the ones in my recollection, but it's fine. Let her have her stories. And I just keep quiet now. And I let her go because it wasn't that long ago. Every time she'd start that, I want to correct her. And it was like, the button pushing. I'd want to make sure, no, that's not what happened, Mom. You're not remembering. And it's number one, why bother now? That's her reality. That's her choice. That's where she wants to be, and that's fine. It's not where I want to be, but I don't have to jump into that either. I can make the choice. So we'll be driving and she's just going off and I'm just smiling and sending her love and just letting her go. And there's no point in me even arguing. So it is a good one. And she's losing. She gets very angry, and I have to tell a quick story because it is pretty funny. And I'm going to use this, imagine the world. I'm going to tell my brother this because my brother, when he's on the phone with her, he'll tell her, I don't understand what you're talking about, Mom, because she goes off on these things and we're totally lost. So she actually swore my sister to secrecy, told her the other day that she's very concerned about my brother's memory because he keeps saying, I don't understand what you're saying. So she thinks my brother now is on the dementia route. So I think now I have something else that he can come up with and say. So he'll just interject that in every now and then, and we'll pull her out of the worrying about his brain.
Oh, that's awesome. That's classic. So anybody else have anything to say about that? Anything? Go ahead, Kathy. Nice. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I think I told you guys a few calls back, maybe one call back, that my sister was diagnosed with cancer, and she had a 10 centimeter tumor. She had one chemo treatment, and would you believe the tumor decreased by 50%? So my blonde-headed math said, well, then 2 treatments and she's done. And my husband said, well, you know what? That's not going to happen because it's in her and it could come out somewhere else. And, I'm just sitting there thinking, well, and by the way, Renee and Tracy, I have been sending her so much healing energy, whatever I can do to try to separate out the differences we had in our past, things we didn't agree on, and trying to work on all that. And when I heard that she reduced it by 50% with one treatment, I was just like, okay, maybe you don't need the doctors. I don't know. I mean, I'm never going to tell her stop the chemo because she would never be able to deal with that. So I just wanted to share that. That was pretty amazing.
That is amazing, and that's awesome. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe it is after the second one, it's gone, and then she's got that whole excuse of, okay, now I don't need to, be here. But isn't it interesting on your husband's thought of that? Well, no, because it's in and it can come out, because that's the fear that we're all go into, especially with cancer, or anything, big disease. We always go into that whole fear, and we're buying in and connecting in on such a different level, which is crazy. So imagine a world without cancer. But to your point, Kathy, that all the love that you're sending, all that stuff, if that person can't take it in, it goes into what I call the reserve body. And usually I see a reserve body standing behind somebody. Sometimes they're on the side of people. And then when they're finally able to receive it, it goes in and it does its work. And I love that whole point, because everything that you were sending, first of all, she didn't know you were sending it, okay, which was really good. So her system was open to it, but they did show it going into reserve body. Then her body could use the excuse for her and her human brain of, okay, I'm getting chemo. This is it. And then it combined together to be able to, and then they're showing it then like shrinking down, because they're saying, so don't stop doing that. And anybody that's sending love or I send them all they need or whatever it is you're saying to anybody with anything, they said, never ever think it's not going. That person is always taking it in an energetic field in some way, shape, or form. And when their body can best receive it, that's when they take it all in. And they're saying that's how miracles happen. That's how all these things start to happen. So congratulations. Like, you were doing a kick-ass job.
Well, I do have to say I was curious if it helped at all. And I'm not trying to take credit at all. I just think that, they haven't canceled the surgery in March or any of that. So she still thinks she's got this long road of pain and suffering to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I will not stop.
Yes, good. And that's the thing. Nobody's ever taken credit, because it's her body, how her body is, needs to be. And the truth of the matter is, her human mind, how they're saying it is, her human mind is trying to control the narrative there. They're saying the human mind, we're losing so much of its control right now in the energy field that we're in. So her body, her physical form is starting to overpower the aspects of the mind. And it's interesting they're using the word overpower, because usually they say transform or transcend, but they're saying it's beginning to overpower that. And it's a matter of what she's going to allow to happen. But the fact that she's had this miracle of allowing it to be 50%, they're saying this may shift. And she needs, I don't know her field word, but they're saying she needs a miracle. She needs a something from her eyes, not from the world in general. They're saying she needs it. Like, how did this even happen? Because she's got to start seeing things differently. They said, like, she's one of those that you need, like that, like some people need that like shock factor. Like, wait a minute, that's not how I thought. To bring her awareness around, which is to me like exciting and fascinating at the same time. Right, that's crazy cool. Did anybody else have anything on that, or anything we've talked about? Because I gotta tell you this. Okay, so Tracy, you were talking, and there was this goes into the imaginary world without. So you're talking, and that this big, and I do not do spiders. Okay, so this big ass spider came. Now I've told other spiders already that, like, look, if you come to my house, you're going to be killed. So please stay away. So, okay, now all of a sudden on the side, there's this big ass spider there. I'm like, okay. So, and when I kill it, I have to see it dead, or I'm thinking it's somewhere, right? So I take my little card deck over here and I think I squish it, but I look at the card deck and I don't see it on there. I'm like, so I got to do it again just in case it went up in the calendar. So then I start being like, you're talking, I'm like, imagine a world without spiders. Imagine a world, and I get to the second one of imagine a world without spiders. And I get corrected. They're like, no, imagine a world without fear. And I was like, okay. So when you're doing things like, I guess we could just go into imagine a world without fear, because they're like, why? What's the problem with that spider being there? Why do you think it's wrong? Like, that spider, you're annoying the spider because you're killing it. So imagine the spider saying, imagine a world without humans. So I'm like, yeah, imagine that.
Which goes into my next, which I've been jamming out a lot about everything is symbiotic. If we were symbiotic with everything internally and externally, it's an equal exchange of creative energy. So nothing is of detriment, or so I do a lot of work with that internally. Like, no, everything is of coherence and a symbiotic relationship in nature. And that's really fun to think about. And I kind of have a knowing that all the synthetic, inorganic things don't have essence and intelligence. So at some point they dissolve because they're not going to be able to survive, maintain. It's a different frequency band again. And I feel like that's a lot of the energies coming out of everyone's body is because they are not of the highest frequency and purest format, and they cannot be symbiotic internally. So they have to dissolve, come out, be alchemized. Also, I love that because of course, Renaé, no spiders, they are. But I also find it fascinating that people are fully fine with that the body can go in a potentially destructive route. So we get cancer or we get sick or we get illness, but there's no faith in the positive route. Well, if our body can get us there, then surely our body can get us back to homeostasis. And I haven't found many people that will agree with me on that. Like, why can't we just entertain the possibility that absolutely the body has not only the ability, but that is its set point. It wants to be healthy and whole. That's what it wants. That is its foundation, or it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so funny how we're so programmed to believe the exact opposite. Well, no, of course, if you're have this, whatever, it's going to progress worse and worse and worse. And we need outside intervention. Like, it's such a lost even thought that no, actually the body wants to be whole. That's what it's trying to achieve. So I don't know. I just love to think of these concepts and study the human thought process and belief system. And here's me going, what? What? Who said that? What? That's ludicrous. And it's like, no, you're the ludicrous one because everyone else believes everything else. And I can talk to Renaé and she totally always is like, oh yeah, no, I see you. I hear you.
Exactly. I get you.
But I think that's a thing of holding the world if I am constantly hold the other perspective of no, that is not how it works. Of course we're symbiotic with all things. Remember, Renaé, I jammed out on mold for like 3 months in an argument. Of course we're symbiotic with mold. It is a living essence. All living things by default from the original design, the original blueprint are symbiotic. So yeah. I don't know if I talked about that on air. I'm sure I did. I talk about everything wacky.
Yeah, I don't know. I can never remember. Because even when Kathy said, oh, I listened to, was it Kathy said that I listened to last week's thing where you talk about words. I'm like, talked about words last week? So it's interesting. But you know what? I'll tell you something. So guys, like this is really interesting because I had somebody emailed me a question, and then I gave them a really lengthy answer. Like I really am trying to like get into the whole field of everything and like not just give you like a one word thing like okay here's things you can do and blah blah blah. So I do that. I send that back to her this big answer, and she then texted and said, "Do you have time? Like, do you have time to talk about it? I want to go into a little further." Well, I don't get the text for like 2 days, I think. And just because I was too busy, I didn't look at my phone because I tend to now take the time to be like, okay, I'm focusing on this. This is the field I'm in. Let's just do this. And I was doing some writing for some things, and I'll do this. So if I look, I'm like, oh, geez, so sorry, I didn't get to that. But if you want to talk, go ahead. But she'd already moved beyond. So I said to the healers, what's it? Because I felt when I got the text and I was looking, I felt this little, it was very subtle, but it was this little shift, like almost like I don't know, went to the side. And I was like, what was that? Like, cause I didn't even think anything about it being the text, right? So I'm like, well, what was that? What was going on? And they said, here's the thing that's happening with everybody. They said, you were in a particular space when you did that. You were in this vibration in this field. Now you get this 2 days later, or even a day later, wherever it was, you get this. You're in a whole different field. Now notice the difference in my hands. They didn't do this. They did this. They said, you're in this whole different field. You cannot go back and talk about that because what you're doing is, and they used it this way then. They said, what you're doing is, this was the vibration. This is where you are now. Now what happens is you want to talk about it, you're going to go down. You're going to have some really different side effects, and that was the word they used, the different side effects in your physical form if you continue to do this. Go down, go up, because then you're going to talk to her about it, you're going to do that, then you're going to want to go back here. But you're going to have a really hard time because you're going to be in this state of fluctuation. So pay attention to that when somebody wants to talk to you about something that maybe happened yesterday or even this morning. And you're like, oh, geez, something's not right afterwards, because you might recognize afterwards, because when you're in that fluctuation period, they're saying that's when you're going to start to have issues with the eyes. You're going to feel a little off kilter. Your physical form may start to, in the point of jewelry, may start to expel things from the body. You may start to, feel really sick. You'll be lightheaded. You might get these dizzy spells because you are continually going into different fields. They said, stay where you're at. And tell people exactly what you're doing, Tracy. We're not talking about it. Like, we've all had a million conversations with people. The people that are trying to convince us that we're all wrong, they're never going to convince us, and we're never going to convince them the other way, right? You can say one thing if you want, let it go, and because that you'll be planting the seed, let it be watered some other way. Who cares? But you keep moving forward. Do not go backwards, and do not make excuses for it. We're not, name your disease that everybody has. You're not, going into dementia. We're not going to Alzheimer's. We are moving into the field of who and what we truthfully are, and we're staying focused in the light beings that we are. So imagine a world where we're all these beautiful light beings. Like, how amazing is that? Which, Tracy, when you were saying that earlier, I was like, oh yeah. Imagine a world where everything is symbiotic and in coherence. I had to actually write it down because I got to write down and say because I knew I wasn't going to remember it. But start to really utilize that. Not even imagine a world without, but imagine a world with this. Imagine a world where everything is symbiotic, like where we're just all beautiful light beings, because that's where we are. And that, they're saying, is going to help all the other beings that are around us within the world to come in and assist from an energetic level, as well as they're saying the physical form. They'll take on a physical form to assist in the best way that we can receive them. Because I know people say, oh, I don't want any extraterrestrials, you're scaring me. I'm like, why would you create it that way? Why wouldn't you, have somebody like a beautiful love and light, come in and do? But that's just our fear base. So imagine a world without fear. All right, anybody have anything else? Anything? Go ahead, Trace.
I have to tell this quick story because it's kind of hysterical. So, oh my gosh, I went to the trip in August. So I had something on my neck. And Jennifer, you spoke to this. My dermatologists keep leaving the practice. So I don't even really have, they keep oh, she's gone now. And then so I try and get in with, she's not even in, or whatever, I don't have one, the place that she was. Oh, they're whatever, 8 months out. So, and then someone else gave me a referral to this one and they wouldn't take me, all these things, like you said. Well, I actually found someone and got in, and I had a thing on my neck, and I got in and I had it biopsied. And I kept saying, Renaé walked me through this. And I was kind of one of those things. Well, okay, let your mental brain figure it out. And I always say, let me see clear and let me see more, for whatever experience I'm having. So they biopsy it, and they're like, I forget the words. I looked at it and it's some skin growth. It's non-cancerous. It totally tracked what I thought it would be. But whatever, we do the right thing, and I haven't had a skin thing. So I go, and they call me back and they're like, it's squamous cell. We have to take it off. And I'm like, well, I'm taking this rafting trip. So back to your story, Jennifer, it was months before I got done with my trip, because you can't have stitches, I'm living on the river for 3 days. And then she was on vacation. So it got pushed way out. The thing fell off my neck within a couple of days. And then I do research on Google AI. We all love, right? Our technology and our science. Will come to find out the thing that it looked textbook like the pictures. It is a non-cancerous thing that unless you ask for a special testing, it looks like squamous cell. And because of the doctors don't want to pay for the extra testing, they're going to err to the fact that it's squamous cell. So they said this keratinosis or whatever is so poorly understood because it always gets shoved in the squamous cell box. So I'm like, well, gosh, isn't that fascinating? Remember when my screen went blank and I said I forgot what I was going to say? I just looked. It's that dermatologist. They will not stop calling me to get this thing that doesn't exist anymore, that I told them I'm not doing it. I'll call you if I'm interested in. I said to Renaé, isn't it hysterical? Hi, this is so-and-so's office looking to get you in to get that thing on. So isn't it funny that now that took faith? Now I'm telling you guys, a doctor told me I had squamous cell and that I need to there's nothing there. Oh, by the way, if you look it up, skin cancer doesn't fall off. It doesn't happen, right? And I told the girl, I go, no, I'm pretty sure it was a keratinosis and it fell off. I'm good. I'll call you if I, feel like I need. Oh, no, that's not how it works. If a crab shell falls out, there's still the crab underneath. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this chick's not falling for that one. So I find it interesting during our conversation about stuff, that here's this dermatologist calling me again. And I'm like, oh, I forgot what I was going to talk about in that second. But what I remembered what I was going to say is most of the people, if you bring up the concept of no, everything's symbiotic, we're whole, a lot of it, the belief systems destroy most people's identity. Because if you are anything to do in the medical world, you just destroyed your identity, and people are fighting like hell to maintain their identity, their purpose in life. And that's when I was going to say, I don't mean to say this out of fear, but I'm watching people do it. Like, why wouldn't you want bee venom to cure cancer? Well, my friend, she's an oncologist nurse, because then she doesn't have a job anymore. Therefore, she doesn't have an identity anymore. So it's so complex about what is happening as we dismantle these belief systems. Anyway, I just find it totally ironic. I'm like, seriously, you're calling me again? I thought we were done with that relationship. Okay. Anyway, Renaé, so
Love it.
there
I
you
love this story. Anybody have anything else? Anything you guys want to talk about at all? We're open. Nothing? Everybody's all good? Well, hopefully this was an awesome show for all of you. And I thank you all. We both thank you all so much for being here and adding to the conversation, because we're all shifting the world. One little conversation or one little thought at a time. I said conversation. They were like, it's not a conversation, it's a thought, the energy. And that's the other thing, you guys, when you have like if you're like these healers that have come in recently are just so direct. They're so like, it's just so matter of fact. And Tracy and I are notorious. I don't know if you guys are. Tracy and I are notorious for wanting to argue with them. Right? We're always like, well, no, I don't want it that way. This is what I think. They're like, no, this. Where now it's so interesting to me, like when they say things, it comes in so matter of fact. It's just like boom. My thought isn't even to question, like, which is crazy for me. I'm always like, no, shouldn't we? Blah, blah, blah. So has that been happening to you, Tracy, too?
Yeah, and I think we talk about it like to the point that I'm arguing, and then I'm like, can you just, it's like, can you just Google the damn word? And I do. Remember I told you that story, and I was like, oh, no, yeah, that. And they're like, yeah, that, you know? And yeah, you don't, and it's kind of very, you said it earlier, Renee. If my head will spin a little, it's like, is that what you want? Is that what you think should happen? And I'm like, well, no, of course not. I'm just trying to be logical about it. And it's just like,
They're like, logical mind? No.
exactly. Yep. So it's fun that it's also, what did I say before? I feel like the contrast and the frequencies is so getting so vast that it's almost like I can't even show up how I might have a month ago. Like it my system won't allow me to do it, which is awesome because there's not a lot of effort to hold your that that your 100% alignment with what you know is true. So getting cool.
Yeah, very cool. I love this stuff. Like I'm always like every time I come, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what's gonna happen today. Because there's always new stuff. And then sounds like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna go? And then start looking at me like, what are you creating? Like, why are you asking us? What are you doing?
And you're like, oh yeah.
Exactly. Like, oh, yeah, okay. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We are taking Let's Go Talk Show is taking a 3-week sabbatical. So this is the end of season 1, and we'll be back next year with season 2, I believe on the 12th. Please know that if something amazing happens or some really good intel comes, we definitely will jump on and do a quick video. So if you haven't hit subscribe and put the little bell on to get notified, please do that. And if this conversation sparks anything in you or can help somebody else, send it over to forward it on to somebody. And thank you. And let's go. Tracy, we all got to say, let's go. Right? Like, let's go. Forget it. No.